with other people that you think would be interested. It will be available on the Yes website and also the Yes YouTube and Vimeo channels. So without further ado, I would like to invite Dawoud to begin.
Hello everybody, I just hope that you, or at least most of you, are able to see me. I am really excited, in fact I'm thrilled to be able to present in front of all of you today with a set purpose in mind, and that is in order to provide you with methods to give an effective presentation. Let me introduce myself really quickly. Most of you know my name, Dawoud Zahran. I'm from Palestine. However, I'm currently a research fellow at King's College London. I do research relating to the Middle East and the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. But enough with that. The most important thing here, the reason you're here, at least most of you, is because you are doing things relating to the International Education Week and providing presentations relating to that. And now I'm here to help you with this. So let's go ahead and get started. My face should disappear soon in order for you to get a better connection, also for me to get a better connection, because usually transferring video will take a lot of data. But in any case, we'll go ahead and start. The name of this presentation is Steps Towards an Effective Presentation. Now, what does that mean exactly? There's lots of things that an effective presentation is, but I'm going to go ahead and share lots of material with you, lots of tips that will make you, or at least make you able to provide an effective presentation to your audience. So some of you might be from this part of the world, some of you might be from this part, but it really doesn't matter where you're from within the context of the International Education Week. The thing is that you should feel proud about the fact that you will present in front of many people who might have never heard about your country. At the same time, you're benefiting them through providing information that they will probably not hear a lot. So, of course, I salute you for that. It's really exciting, really important. At the same time, we need to keep in mind that other people are joining us for just the general purpose of knowing how to present or develop their skills on presentations. But we'll go ahead and just get started, either whether you're here for the IEW or just in general. You will definitely enjoy this a lot because it will just add to your skills or develop them. So just take a look at this slide. You have just to look at the general view. We'll come back to this at the very end of the presentation, but some of you now or later after we're done will be able to see there's lots of things wrong within this slide, but we'll go ahead and get back to it at the very, very end. But what makes a presentation effective? To be honest, guys, lots of things. There's lots of things that make a presentation effective, and it depends on multiple circumstances. It depends on your audience. It depends on you. However, I just not necessarily calculate, but I will provide you with 5 tips or 5 things that you can go ahead and use in order to develop or start developing an effective presentation. So you have 5 things here. Go ahead, feel free to read all of them. The first thing you have to keep in mind, in my opinion, of course, is that you need to make it visual. And what I mean by visual isn't necessarily that you will just put pictures or videos. The fact that you will be able to put colors in, nice backgrounds, a nice interface will make it visual. So keep that in mind, and of course all these steps I'll expand upon when we get to the next slides. Now, secondly, make it simple. You do not have or do not need to have many sections going on within your presentation. It doesn't matter if you have 3, 2, or even 1. Just make sure it's organized. Make sure that you know what you're talking about and just make it simple. So the third thing here is make it memorable. Ensure that you add material, and of course I will help you with that make the audience remember the day you presented. Make your audience know. The thing is, you have to care about your audience. The whole purpose of you presenting is for your audience. Otherwise, you'll just be sitting alone and talking to yourself. So just making it memorable is really, really important. And we'll talk about methods to make it happen that way. Fourth, and of course the fourth and fifth one are probably the most important ones. Know your presentation. Now, you're really not required to have everything ready from the first time you get your presentation. It requires that you go ahead, develop on it, and edit it, and edit it, and edit it more. And with the fifth thing, you need to practice, practice, practice. Now, for me to be able to give you this presentation, I practiced it about 2 times, and then I went with Bethany and practiced it once. Now, this is really important because I'm much more comfortable giving you the presentation because I've repeated it multiple times. And of course, you don't have to stick with 2 times. You can do it 3, 4, 5, until you actually feel comfortable giving the presentation. But really, when you practice, when you go ahead and develop and edit what you have, you will find it really, really useful as you go through your presentation and as you practice it. So let's keep these 5 things in mind. Of course, you'll be able to get back to this whenever you want, whether the presentation itself or the recording of the presentation, but it will be really, really useful when you need it. Now, your introduction. I'm going to go ahead and technically split your presentation into 3 parts. Your introduction, the body of your presentation, and of course the conclusion. And we'll talk about these step by step. Now, the most important part of the introduction is your hook. And you will hear that more as you go on with your student career, as you go on with your professional career. But really, the hook is really important for 3 main reasons. It first gives you confidence. When you're doing your hook, people understand that you are also prepared, that you prepared something for them. They appreciate that. The third thing is that it captures attention. Your audience will actually be able to listen to you immediately when you do your hook. And I mean, it's not necessarily that your audience is ready for you at the time you want to start. So the hook is used to go ahead and capture the attention of everybody around. But your question now might be, how can I hook my audience? And of course, that's a very, very good question. We'll go ahead and get into that in a second. But before that, let's go ahead and go to step 2, knowing what you have to give. Now, how do you do that? You need to first know your audience and adapt to it. And what I mean by that, sometimes you might do a presentation in an elderly house. That is very, very different from, for an example, doing it to a middle school, elementary school, a high school, when you do your International Education Week presentation. But when you know your audience, you will be able to edit your presentation to be appealing for them. So just keep that in mind, that you need to know your audience, and that will make your presentation much, much better. Secondly, share what you think is important. The thing is that many people share lots of things, and from the presentations I've looked at, for many students around your age, they share lots of things which they themselves do not believe are important. So just make sure you share what you feel is important, because this will also make you have a presentation that is very straightforward and just effective. Now, the third thing is you need to learn from what others shared. I'm in no way telling you to create everything. You can definitely learn from others and just get information from what others are doing, and also just understand how you can contribute to that, how you can add to that. You don't necessarily need to do exactly what they did, but you can, of course, add to it. And of course, I'll talk about some of the things I did in International Education Week relating to the hook, and of course the general presentation. Moving on towards the ways you can hook your audience. The most important tip is that I would definitely recommend you create your own methods. And that is not necessarily easy, but I think it really, really develops the way you do your presentation. However, I'll give you some examples for what I did in the International Education Week, and I thought these were really, really good methods. First of all, you can say something in your language. The first thing I did, and of course you can write something in your language, but the first thing I did in my presentation to International Education Week is that I just wrote something in Arabic, and that was really interesting for those who were watching the presentation. And at the same time, of course, when I did that, I captured the attention of the audience and went on. Of course, their attention continued to go on all the way until the end, because I started with something really, really interesting. Secondly, which is a more of a traditional way to do it, is to start with an interesting fact or quote. And of course, it doesn't have to be in words. It can be a picture. It can be something that resembles you, resembles your country. And it will be really a nice addition. But remember, it is very traditional to do that. A third thing, which I didn't see a lot through my experience in seeing people do presentations, I myself did it a very few times, but it's very, very fun to engage someone from the audience immediately. And the way you can do that is that you can get someone who's comfortable getting in front of everybody and just ask them questions, just general, like for an example, you can ask them about your country, what they know about your country. And then get someone at the end to get up and just tell you what they know about your country now. So it's more of a beginning and end. So engaging someone from the audience immediately is one of the ways you can do it. But again, to reaffirm that you need to go ahead and create your own methods. And really, the more you do it, the more methods you'll be able to come up with. So that is concerning the methods that can hook your audience. But let's move on to the body of your presentation. Now, the introduction and the conclusion of your presentation are basically just steps to facilitate your general presentation. The body is where you will share all or most of your info. Now, you need to go ahead and make sure you insert interesting material. That's the first thing. Now, it's all about your audience again. So you need to keep your audience hooked. The first thing you do is insert interesting material. And you might ask me, what do I mean by interesting material? Now, within the context of a country presentation, you can go ahead and, of course, share, for an example, historical sites, heritage, and geographical view. But be careful about the geographical view. The geographical view means that you need to show the people your country from the point of view of the world. Many people zoom in and just show the countries surrounding it, but not where it exists on the country or the map of the world. So make sure you go ahead and do that. It's also really exciting for your audience to just know where you are and how far you're actually usually from them. Heritage is at the same time, which is the second point I talked about, is something that every country has differently. It includes food, traditional clothes, language, traditional dancing, and lots of things which make you you. So you need to go ahead and insert that because it will really be useful. So think about these, add to them whatever you think is important. Of course, it's up to you, but these are things that I think that must be within your country presentation. But let's go back to the other points. The second thing is that you need to stay energized. Now, in the body of your presentation, one of the things I've seen a lot in presenters is that they start really strong, but then they cool down through the body of your presentation, and then they pick up on the conclusion. But that also makes your audience bored as well. So make sure you stay energized as you go through your presentation, and that will also continue to keep your audience energized as well. And thirdly, and this is really important, engage the audience whenever possible. You can show them a video and ask them about that video, or you can, for an example, ask questions. Now, when you ask them questions, don't ask too many questions and don't show them lots of videos. It's just a method in the middle to keep your audience engaged and continue hooking your audience with the topic you're talking about. And really, this helps with being nervous. When you see everybody is actually watching you, is actually looking up to what you do, it really provides you with confidence to continue and just provide something that is valuable and effective. But moving on to the conclusion, which is a step that is also a method to facilitate and end your presentation. Make sure you make a connection with your audience when you're done. Again, the reason you're presenting is because there's people who are watching you for a specific reason. Now that reason is because they want to go ahead and just obtain information from you. You provided them with the introduction, you gave them the information in the body, but you need to leave them with a connection. You need to leave them with something that is really special. So this is a time to dance or share some food, and that would be really something they would appreciate. Secondly, in your conclusion, you can take it to the next level, something that very few people do. Or if they do it once, they never do it again. Get feedback from your audience. Now, if you get 1 or 5, let 1 out of 5 or 5 out of 5, make sure you get the reason for that. Because when they provide you with the reason they gave you that score, you can go ahead and develop a lot as you get your feedback. So I think getting the feedback is almost half of how important your presentation is, because they will be able to point out things that you didn't necessarily know about. For an example, you move around a lot and you thought this was positive, however they think it's not. So you can go ahead and, of course, develop on that. And thirdly, a tip for answering questions. In your conclusion, usually there's a question. Now, if you don't know the answer, it's absolutely fine. Many people that have helped do better presentations always get confused with questions that they cannot answer, but
Hi, everybody. Sorry, I think that Dawoud got kicked out a second, so let's just give us a minute and we'll get him back into a presenter mode. Thanks for your patience.
I hope you can hear me now. I'm very sorry for this. I'm not sure what happened exactly, but I guess I got a connection loss. But anyways, let's go ahead and pick up. Can you hear me well? Perfect. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, great. So let's go ahead and continue. Now, the thing is, if you don't know the answer, again, it is absolutely fine, but it's really cool to go ahead and say that I can check for you. It's really nice when you go ahead and give attention to the audience and the way they're asking you a question, and go ahead and tell them, I will get back to you. And with the answer to this question, you can do a small research and you'll be able to get it, but you don't have to answer it immediately. Don't expect that many people actually are expecting you to know everything about the topic you're presenting about. So go ahead and just be comfortable. If you don't know the answer, it is absolutely fine. Moving on towards general tips. Now, these general tips, as you can see, I've collected about 10 exactly, and they are very, very useful in my opinion. And the reason for that is that from my experience, from watching other people present, I always develop methods to go ahead and just try to give the perfect presentation. Of course, it's never perfect, but you'll be able to develop it in that way, which is very, very positive. Now, first of all, you need to keep eye contact and be heard. Many people know this rule and just cannot implement it because they don't try it as much as they can or as much as they should. So go ahead, if you cannot do it by now, make sure you go ahead and try to develop it, and also adjust to where you are talking. Because sometimes you might be talking with a microphone, you don't have to scream. However, it might be a large hall without a microphone, so you'll have to get your voice a little bit up. Now, the second thing is don't move around a lot. Many people think that moving around necessarily provides or shows confidence, shows dominance. It really doesn't. What you can do is that you can move your hands and other things. But for sure, make sure you go ahead and just move around, but just not too much to the extent that your audience will go back and forth with their heads, which will actually just make them lose concentration. Now, the third thing is be creative in your own way. What I'm trying to give you here are basically general tips and guidelines to go ahead and just start you up. But of course, be creative in your own way, and I think that'll be by itself amazingly productive for you. Now, the fourth thing is to choose your colors and pictures wisely, because the pictures and colors really, as I said, when you become visual in your presentation, it really brings your presentation to life. So just make sure you need to go ahead and implement that. 5, don't put too much text in one slide. This is really well known. However, many people misinterpret what it means. As you can see, this slide itself has a lot of words. However, they're organized into numbers and they have a purpose for why they're there. Having too much text in one slide relates to just having a chunk of a paragraph just in that slide where it's provided for you and not for the audience. And you need to take advantage of the slide. Don't make it a negative to you and to your audience. And this is where the 6th point is really, really important. Have a hard copy of your presentation. And this will be really, really nice because you'll not have it on the slide itself, but you'll have it on a hard copy that you'll be able to practice on. So just have all the information on that hard copy and have the main points on your slide that is presentable in front of your audience. 7, don't steal information. Cite your material. And what I mean by that is that it shows you as a professional. Sometimes it doesn't matter. Sometimes nobody would care about it. However, when you put a citing for your picture, when you put a citing for your quote that you used, it is absolutely positive. And it shows you as an individual who is professional and who can actually cite their material and cares about others' information. Now, the 8th thing is get yourself comfortable and ready. I mean, myself right now, I'm wearing what I would normally wear if I'm presenting in front of people who can actually see me. However, because you don't see me here, I'm not wearing my pajamas, I'm just wearing everything. And the reason for that is that it gives you confidence. It shows or makes you feel yourself as ready. So you need to go ahead and just get yourself ready in every way, sleep, get your breakfast. It's like a test, but it's not necessarily a test. It's just something that you need to look up to and be prepared for. The ninth thing is choose the representation medium. And the medium, what I mean by medium is what you're going to use in order to develop your information or transfer your information to your audience. And this doesn't have to be electronic. It can be in many different ways. However, within the context of this presentation, it will relate to two systems, which are PowerPoint and Prezi. And of course, I'll talk about that in a second. The 10th thing here, which is really important, don't think slides, think time. And what I mean by thinking time is that many people tell me, how many slides should I have? The slides are not the important thing. I can have a 5-slide presentation and it will take me an hour to present it. Or someone will have a 50-slide presentation and it will take them about 15 minutes to finish it. So make sure you think about the time that you have. Let's say you have 45 minutes. You adjust your slides according to how much time you have. So these are just general 10 tips that you can go ahead and get back to whenever you want, and I really hope they'll be really helpful with you. So let's go ahead and move on. These are the best places to give your country presentation. Of course, from my experience, your communities are much different than what I've been in. I was placed in Broadhead, Wisconsin, and you might be in bigger cities or smaller cities, and I think that will be also, it will be much more centers, much more things going on, and I think that will contribute to where you can actually go. But in my situation, firstly, a school, and this basically means your school, another school, or a middle school, and these are things that your school will appreciate because they're different. The second thing are cultural and religious centers. You can go to a church, synagogue, a mosque, an elderly house, wherever you think you should go ahead and adopt to it. But you can go ahead and, of course, do it at many other cultural and religious centers, but I think these are the most popular, I believe. And thirdly, you can go ahead and do it during your placement organizations activities. And this is, I think, is amazing because this is what we did. I do not believe it was an International Education Week, but we were able to actually present in front of the other exchange students, and it's really amazing feeling to just go ahead, sit down, listen to other people, and just be listened to. And so go ahead and make sure if your placement organization is not making that, suggest it. That is really, really something that will be positive to you, and you can go ahead and implement it as much as you want, but go ahead and suggest it, that's for sure. The fourth thing is start to present to your host family. Now, this might sound funny a little bit. Why would I present to your host family? But firstly, your host family will really, really appreciate it. And secondly, they will be able to give you the first feedback. So once you get feedback from your host family, you'll be able to develop your presentation even better. And it doesn't have to be for your host mom and dad. It can be to your extended host family. So keep these in mind. Figure out other places to do it. That is absolutely great. But of course, it really relates to where you are, what you do, and just go ahead and try to find as many places as possible. But this is just a rough draft, let's say. This is just basically general locations you can go ahead and do your country presentation in. Moving on to how to avoid being nervous. Now, there's lots of kinds for being nervous. There's lots of situations, but really, I think for many questions that I get from students on I get nervous a lot, I think these 4 were the most helpful for most of the students that asked me. And the first thing is being actually prepared. Part of being nervous relates to you not being fully prepared for your presentation. And this is what I meant when I said practice, practice, practice. When you go ahead and actually practice it more, you'll become more confident and continue practicing it until you feel confident about it when you present it by yourself. Now, the second thing, which will also provide you with a feeling of confidence, is taking it as a mission or an achievement to be made. Now, this is what I did when I had all my clothes, when I got ready for this, when I practiced it a lot. It is a mission for me to go ahead and give back to my YES community and benefit you in giving a better presentation. So I took it as a mission and achievement, and I took it seriously. So there's no space for me to be nervous or not sure. So I go ahead and provide you with the best thing I can. So take it as a mission, guys. The third thing is understanding that you made your own presentation. There's no one that knows that you have a next slide that has a picture or a plan that you need to go ahead and do a dance. So if you forget something, if you're not sure about something, just know that your audience doesn't know about it. So you can go ahead and alter it the way you want. And the fourth thing is just you need to accept that you will make mistakes. And that is really the point. When you go ahead and give your presentation once and get feedback on it, it is really, really nice when you know that you made a mistake and that you will not do it again. The important thing is that you learn from the mistakes that you have. So just go ahead and try to look at these methods to at least, let's say, reduce how nervous you are. But as you go, the more you do it, you'll get more comfortable with it. You'll know that people enjoy listening to you. And as far as you develop, your nervousness will go ahead and reduce. And let me go ahead and give you some useful links to get you started. Now, I gave you two things over here. One is PowerPoint, and the second is Prezi. Now, straightforwardly, which one would I recommend? Prezi, for multiple reasons. One, it's revolutionary. Two, it's uncommon. The only negative thing maybe is that you have to self-teach yourself. There's lots of tutorials on YouTube for Prezi, and you can see the instructions here. Go to YouTube, type in official Prezi tutorials, and choose the playlist that has about 61 videos. So you can go ahead and follow these steps and it will get you ready for Prezi. On the other hand, PowerPoint is traditional, common, but there's lots of help available to develop it. And PowerPoint is amazing, for sure. But I mean, Prezi is just a different thing that in itself will hook your audience. But go ahead, no matter which one you will eventually choose, the more you do it, the better it will get. So just keep that in mind because it will be really, really beneficial. The more you do it, the better it will always get. So these are just the useful links that will be really, really useful. Go ahead, follow the instructions that I provided for you here. You'll be able to access the tutorials for both of them. And just watch them, give them the time they need. And the more you do it, it will get better. Now, back to the presentation that we just talked about. Now, many of you, I can see that there's lots of you interacting over here on the chat side. I'd love to go ahead and, of course, answer many of the questions that you are asking here. But what do you think is wrong with the slides? If you want to go ahead and type it down, that would be great. I mean, there's lots of things, but go ahead. I can see that some people are typing, which is great. Go ahead. Okay, Hamida, that's very, very close and very, very right. You love Prezi. That's nice. The colors are bad for sure, for sure. No time to read all the info for sure. Well, let's take one more. Exactly. So too much is written. As you can look at it, there's lots of text. The title does not really tell you what's going on. It's really important, guys, that you get your title right because it will definitely get your audience to know what's going on. So keep that thing in mind. The second thing, the colors do not match the background. You have a bad background, you have a bad color to match it, and it's really, really tiring for you and for your audience. And just generally looking at this, some of you might have knew that before I went ahead and went with the presentation. Some of you might have just learned this. But on both sides, just make sure you go ahead and learn from the mistakes of others, from your mistakes, and from what others do. So these are just some of the things that I wanted to share with you. But as I said, and I will say that again, in no way am I trying to go ahead and just give you a general view for things you have to do. You can go ahead and develop your methods. You can go ahead and develop your ideas. You can go ahead and make lots of things great through what you will do and through the way you will always present. So just keep that in mind and just work really hard to go ahead and give back to your YES community as much as possible, whether it's now or whether when you're an alumni. Unless, of course, you're already an alumni, which you're contributing, or I hope you're contributing as much as you can. So let's go ahead and move on to the questions. You do have a series of questions. I've got a couple here.
Yeah, so the first
Yeah, go ahead, Beth.
The first one that I saw, the first question was, how do you make your presentation fun and relaxed?
For sure. I mean, look, that's a really, really good question. Do you know who asked that, Bethany?
I do not, but they can write their name in the chat box if that was their question.
Okay, I mean, in any case, that's a really good question. I mean, many of the things that I discussed in the presentation relate to that. And fun and relax, I think, are very, very related to each other. The first thing you need to know, what your audience thinks is fun and relaxed. Who are you presenting to? Are you presenting in a religious center? Are you presenting for your high school friends? Or are you presenting to your host family? So you need to go ahead and get that fixed first. The second thing is that to make it relaxed, just don't put too much information. Share what is important, share what is interesting, and just make sure to make it fun that you engage your audience. Engage them in dancing, engage them in eating food, engage them in doing lots of things. And of course, when you go ahead and engage your audience and have a presentation that just shares important things that you believe are important, of course, it will be fun, it will be relaxed. But keep that in mind. But I think the most important thing to start you up is to just get to know your audience and who you are actually presenting to.
Thanks. I think that's a great answer. I think you're right. It definitely is better to know your audience and what they think would be fun and relaxing and exciting. So that's a great point. The next question that we got was, how do you keep the attention of a rowdy crowd?
For sure. I mean, there's multiple methods that you can actually do that. And I can definitely share a lot of what you can do. But first of all, I would recommend you create your own methods for that. But of course, from my experience, first of all, you have to be confident. Confidence relates to the audience actually looking at you and concentrating with you. So you need to show confidence. You need to be very straightforward in the way you talk. You need to engage the audience in a way, you don't engage the audience too much, but you need to engage them as well. The more you engage the audience, they might get more to talk with each other and stuff like that. And the less you engage them, maybe they'll get more bored. So of course, your audience should be more than willing to just sit and listen to you. It's respectful to sit and listen to you. And if you have people who are necessarily talking a lot or just not respecting your presentation, you can go ahead and of course inform them with that. Or just engage them themselves. I think it's one of the funny ways you can do it is engage the individual who's just not, who doesn't stop talking. So you can go ahead and do that on one hand, but usually your audience should be listening to you and should not necessarily be talking a lot unless like they have a question or if you engage them.
I think you're right. Do you have any specific tips on how you could engage them?
Yeah, I mean, look, there's things I mentioned in the presentation itself, like sharing a video and ask them about that video. But I mean, depending on what your country has, you can go ahead and do a dance and get the audience to dance with you on a specific music video or on a specific music. Another way of engaging the audience, don't think about engaging the audience as necessarily having them physically engage. They are engaged, for an example, in a video. They are engaged in an emotional picture. You can engage them in many ways, such as videos, pictures, but really one of the nice ways is when you go ahead and let them participate with you with something in front of everybody, like when you give them food or when you go ahead and do a dance. But really think about many ways. But what I did usually is that I just did sort of some Palestinian dabke, which I'm very bad at, but I was just able to do a couple of things and they liked it. So this is one of the ways you can go ahead and engage them.
See, Ruslan just said, can I present the same presentation to students of high grades and small grades and people over 30, or should it be different presentations? That's a good question.
I mean, sure, that's a very, very good question. I mean, the important thing is that what I meant by changing the presentation isn't necessarily to fundamentally change it. What I mean is that you can go ahead and just edit some things to be appealing to many people. You can put more sophisticated and let's say detailed information for those who are maybe over 30. But really for like high school students, you can go ahead and get lots of pictures in, lots of videos in, and make it, I guess, more fun. But also, if you do it for really like small grades, you're talking about middle school and all that, I think the middle schoolers will be very, very interested in visual things as well. However, don't include that much presentations. Don't include that much text in, and at the same time, I think it will also be reduced by time. When you're presenting to people who are over 30, it will be a longer presentation. High school, it will be less, and then when you do it to middle school or even elementary, it will be less. So think about like 15 minutes, 25 minutes, 45 minutes. But you definitely do not have to transform your presentation. You can go ahead and just add to it or subtract from it.
I think your point about the time was really important. You know, for a younger crowd, you might want to just have a shorter presentation because their attention spans usually aren't as long. Christine asked for a little bit more information about that. Like, what do you think they would be interested in learning about for the different age groups of people, and how does that information get presented?
Okay, well, I can split this into two parts, really. The first one is for the middle schoolers and the high schoolers, for an example, and those who are maybe a little bit older, like over 30 or like in university. First of all, when you do it to high schooler students or just middle schoolers, you can go ahead and put things that relate to visual material. And I would recommend that because, to be honest, not everybody's going to be interested a lot in a long presentation. So when you put visual things like videos and pictures that show your country, that show who you are, where you're from, it will be really, really interesting. But I would definitely recommend the things I talked about in the interview, in the presentation, such as the historical sites, such as just having general information about your country, having the geographical view. Make sure you include that. This is really important. Your heritage, your traditions, of course, to your high schoolers or middle schoolers. But like for the people who are 30 or more, I think it would be really useful to go ahead and put more detailed information about maybe the history of your country. These kind of things I would not recommend you put for people who are like, let's say in high school level or middle school level, but I would recommend you put it for those who are a little bit older, because I think they'll be more interested about the history of your country. And of course, don't forget, they will also be interested in your just pictures of your country, things that you do in your country, what makes your country special, basically. But remember that you do not have to alter a lot. It's just that the amount of information needs to be reduced.
Nice. And do you have any specific examples or suggestions for how to conclude with a captivating ending?
I mean, I mentioned two things for now in the presentation about it is a good time to share some food, or go ahead and just engaging your audience through a dance or singing or something like that. But when you say captivating, it really depends on what you are presenting within the context of your presentation. You might be sharing a lot about history, and ending with a historical video, I think, will be very, very nice. So I think it's really important for you to first think about how do you want to end your presentation. But after that, I would just recommend methods that are simple and nice. And I think a captivating ending as well is when you ask for their feedback. Because one of the things that the audience will care about is that you care about what they think. And just asking for their feedback, I think, is one of the captivating things. But I think your question relates more to how I can go ahead and do something specific that will really interest them. But I would recommend you share food, you do a dance, you show a very, very short, inspiring video, or just end with a very simple picture. But it's up to you about the conclusion.
Yeah, I think the ending is definitely a great time to do something interactive, like sharing food or maybe doing a dance all together, and kind of tying up all of the things that you talked about by actually allowing people to experience them. So for IEW, that's a great one. What about for just a general presentation?
Well, I mean, I think for a general presentation, well, there's two really important things. Don't forget to thank your audience, and thank whoever contributed to your presentation at the very end, because I think that's something many appreciate and not everybody necessarily does. Maybe because they forgot, maybe they don't necessarily feel they should, all this kind of stuff. And also give the feedback. But for a general presentation, I think you should go ahead and stick with the same thing. Don't make it too complicated. Don't make lots of things to prepare for it. But I mean, think about it as the introduction. The introduction is supposed to hook your audience, and the conclusion really relates to leaving a memory to your audience. So whether it's general or whether it's you're doing it to specific people in the IEW, just go ahead and make sure that you look at what your presentation is. I cannot necessarily tell you that, oh, you must have this at the end of your presentation, because the context of your presentations are going to be very, very different. Just think about the way you can leave your audience with a memory.
I think that's a great tip. So we have time for one more question, but before I go ahead and ask that, I'd like to remind everybody to please take the polls at the bottom so we know what country you're from and how you're feeling about giving your presentations after listening to Dawoud's presentation about presentations. So the last question that we have is from Busra, and they want to know, what do you think about using humor in a presentation so that you can connect with people, and is there a limit to how much humor you can use or where the line is drawn there?
That's a very, very good question. Well, first of all, there is a limit. That is, I think, the most important thing to know, and I think it's definitely important to put it in. First of all, you need to go ahead and know how you're gonna have your humor inserted into your presentation. That's one. But once you made sure you want to go ahead and do it, for sure, I would definitely recommend you do it. It's a nice, very nice way to engage with your audience. Just don't do it too much to the extent that it would actually look like a silly presentation. But of course, I would definitely recommend you go ahead and do it. But really, there's multiple ways you can do it. If your audience doesn't laugh, just know they laughed from the inside. I would not say no to that. But for sure, go ahead and do it, but just not too much. There is a limit for sure.
Great. Well, thank you, Dawoud, so much for sharing all of your tips and strategies with us today. I think your presentation was really wonderful, and I learned a few new things, so that was exciting. Just a reminder to everybody, at the bottom right hand of the screen, you can see the link to Dawoud's Prezi presentation. So if you would like to see his presentation in its Prezi format, you can copy and paste that link into your web browser, and you can look at it there. Also, we will be having the recording from this webinar up on the Yes Program's website by tomorrow. So if you would like to share it with other people that you think it would be useful, please go ahead and share it with them. Thank you all so much for joining.
And just to go ahead and, just to final remarks real quick. Alright, so yeah, make sure you go ahead and of course go back to the Prezi. I think that would be really, really nice for multiple reasons, because it will show you the difference between how my presentation could have looked like if it was on Prezi format. We're unfortunately not able to do it here because the system does not support that. However, you will see the difference for yourself, how my presentation would have looked like if it was on Prezi. So go ahead and please do that. The second thing, just try to give your QS community as much as possible, whether it's now, whether when you're an alumni. I think it's a very, very nice thing to go ahead and do. And I would definitely like to thank you for being here, and I think I really, really enjoyed the making and the presenting of this presentation. My only hope is that you were actually able to get information that will be useful to you to develop many, many ways to give an effective presentation. And of course, the IEW is amazing. Go ahead and do as much as you can. It will be one of the memories you will always remember. But of course, once again, thank you very much, and I hope you have a great day or a great day tomorrow. Thank you.